freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network. I am your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website, oraclebroadcasting.com. Today is Sunday, July 10th, 2011. Today is the 155th birthday of the great inventor and humanitarian Nikola Tesla. And I have just actually now, within the past hour, less than an hour, come in from the third annual Nikola Tesla Energy Independence celebrations here in the city of Philadelphia. And it was an amazing event this week and weekend. I have to tell you folks, I'm exhausted mentally and physically. It was a challenging event. We had such a great time. We hosted a whole lot of phenomenal scientists, electrical engineers, physicists, you name it, energy healers, people who have great applications of advanced technologies having to do with Tesla technology. We did outreaches to the public. We're going to talk about this a lot more tonight. I know that last week I had promised everybody a show on the continuation of the topic that I opened up last week, which was the occult aspects of the 9/11 event, which we began last week. And we looked at some of the occult traditions in connection with 9/11. And I had told people last week on the show that we were going to look at the gematria or the occult numerology that was involved in the 9/11 event this week. But unfortunately, I was so busy with the my responsibilities for helping out in the organization of the events this weekend with the Tesla Energy Independence celebrations that I did not quite have a chance to prepare the show on 9/11 gematria. So instead, we have a very special treat coming up for you. During the next couple of hours. We're going to recap the events over the past weekend, and I'm going to bring on a very special guest in the next segment. You won't want to miss it, and I'm sure people will have a strong reaction one way or another to who my guest is. But this gentleman joined me at the Tesla event this weekend, and it was a pleasure to spend time with him and his family. We mutually shared a whole lot of information. I know I learned a lot from him, and we're going to get his thoughts on the events of the past weekend at the Tesla Energy Independence celebrations here in Philadelphia. So stay tuned. That's going to be coming up, and we'll recap the entire event when we come back on the other side of this break, which is coming up. So for anyone who wants more information on the Tesla Science Foundation, I encourage everyone to check out their website, which is www.teslasciencefoundation.org. A great group of people. Everyone should become involved to bring the works of the great inventor Nikola Tesla to fruition. And no better day, no more fitting day to be talking about this than on his birthday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on What on Earth is Happening. On this 155th anniversary of the birth of the great scientist and inventor Nikola Tesla. Tesla was born on midnight between July 9th and 10th in 1856, and he did so much to move the progress of humanity forward. We honor him on this day. No better day, no more fitting day than I could be doing a broadcast than on Tesla's birthday this year. So without any further ado, we're going to go live to our special guest who is on the road. He is heading back from the Tesla Science Conference. He was just there with me earlier today. We were having a brainstorming session on the 32nd floor of the Liberty 2 Tower here in Philadelphia, where the Tesla Science Conference was happening. And then we got a chance to check out one of the great lectures, the presentations there in the conference room. Joining me is a fellow radio talk show host, a fellow internet talk show host. His show is broadcast on American Freedom Radio, and it is called Radio Free Humanity, live from the road, heading back to Massachusetts after visiting the Tesla Science Foundation's Energy Independence celebrations this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to What on Earth is Happening, my special guest for the show today, Frater X. Frater X.
Hey, Mark. I am. Thank you. Greetings to you and friends of Mark and all the listeners out there.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. It was a great time getting together with you and having a chance to hang out and share ideas this weekend. Why don't you just begin in with telling the listeners what you thought of the overall Tesla Energy Independence celebrations this weekend. Give them your thoughts, your impressions. Talk a little bit about what you liked about the conference. Talk a little bit about what you shared with people there, maybe what you learned, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you to you and to all the people involved in the Tesla Science Foundation for not only welcoming myself and my family down to Philadelphia and making us feel so welcome there, but also simply for putting on this conference because, I think that it's just so exciting. What an important event to be involved in, just to attend and soak up the knowledge and wisdom that was being laid down there everywhere I turned. It was amazing to me. It was like a quickening, and I felt, I felt overwhelmed. I didn't know which way to turn, and I wanted to get everything, It was just like everywhere I looked, it was a smorgasbord of knowledge and experience, and people's inspiration. You could really sense how inspired everyone seemed to be. And they were really excited because, it's like particles of the same charge coming together, that was one thing I felt like. I felt like, a particle charged in a Tesla coil field. There was a real quantum reaction this weekend. Whose effects are far-reaching. Yeah, they're far-reaching, and we're still yet to be realized. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
Absolutely. The caliber of minds that were present there is just not enough can be said about it. And I'll tell you a little anecdote about what happened to me on the second day of the conference. And this is a 4-day conference, which is pretty much long for anybody. I have a pretty high tolerance for the intake of information. I could pretty much go with the best of them as far as that is concerned. But on Friday, I came home after the brainstorming session that we had on Friday on the 32nd floor of Liberty 2, and after the event there on Friday, there was so many ideas flying back and forth, and I'll tell people about the brainstorming session that we did have there and what it was about as we progress along on the show this evening. But afterward, so many ideas were flying through my mind that I just felt like I was on overload, that I couldn't even process it, like that I had to just go into the void, I guess you could say, to just let things sink in. And I decided I was going to lay down for 15 minutes and just recoup for a little while after I came in. And I went right out like a light, and I didn't wake up until about 5:30 in the morning, the next morning, and I had to get up to do some preparations, and that was barely enough time to do them. I did get them done, but I basically stayed up from that point forward until the next day. But I never go out like that, like a light, and just stay out. It's not that I'm a light sleeper either, but my girlfriend Barb said a few times she attempted to wake me up even to eat, because we really hadn't eaten dinner when we came home from the conference, and I didn't even want to wake up to eat, which is highly unusual for me. So it just seems like there was so much energy going on, and it was so much to process that it was even a lot for people who could take a lot of information in, and it's like my body kind of responded to that right in the middle of the conference there, and with a need to have to rejuvenate at a very deep level. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But you're absolutely right, Frater X. The caliber of minds and the synergy, the synergistic energy between people at this conference was just off the chart.
Yeah, it was really like next level stuff. And like you said, coming into contact with this information is not unlike, an upgrade. I mean, you need time to let it soak in. There's so much coming down, and that it's dynamic knowledge because it feels that way. You can intuit that what you're dealing with here is next level stuff. I hate to be redundant, but one of the most exciting things that I came into contact on Saturday night was at the Ethical Society award ceremony and the theremin ensemble concert. It was amazing. But the speaker, Dr. Pravica, is that his name?
Pravica, yes.
From University of Las Vegas, correct?
Michael Pravica, yes, Dr. Michael Pravica.
A physics professor who gave the most astounding, I think what we could call a recap of Tesla's impact on our culture, on our species, on the world. And one of the most profound things he said in that talk was when he looked at us all and said, 155 years ago, Tesla invented the polyphase dynamo, right? Or
the
over
polyphase
155 years.
System, yes.
The engine, the dynamo, electric motor.
Right.
And what other inventor, he said, over 155 years later, the invention remains the way it was invented, besides like the wheel inventor, he said. I mean, that's how potent an invention this was.
Yes. Tesla's life is still having impact in every corner of the world, in every area of our lives. All the modern technology we take for granted would not even be possible had Tesla not developed the theories and the systems that he did to make possible the driving of all of the other pieces of technology that we use all around us.
Absolutely, and I mean, that's the one message that I think came through loud and clear this weekend. We're talking about this man. I mean, I think it was important for some of the speakers who spoke about the tragic side of his story. I know you addressed that somewhat, but also other speakers who really focused on, Tesla, the tragic side of the chronicles of his life, and clearly the manner and the depth of the travesty committed against humanity by the moneyed interests who stood opposite of him and opposed his, the fact that the man died alone and penniless and couldn't even in the last years of his life afford the patent application for his inventions is like, it's an injustice, I think, to us all.
An understatement to say the least. We'll get right back to that story on the other side of this break. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening with my special guest, Frater X. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is...
We're back, folks. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. I am your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We are recapping the events of this past week. The Nikola Tesla Energy Independence celebrations here in Philadelphia, hosted by the Tesla Science Foundation. Their website, teslasciencefoundation.org. And it was a tremendously successful event. Scientists from all over the country came in, inventors, enthusiasts. We had a great celebration, at Independence Mall Park, just outside the Independence Visitor Center here in Philadelphia. I'm going to be talking about the spirit of independence that was underlying this entire event and the entire weekend. And I'll be reading the Declaration of Energy Independence, which the Tesla Science Foundation has drafted and put forward, which is a declaration of free energy for all humanity, and how that is our birthright as a species, because this is what is being held back in this controlled and limited and polluting energy paradigm that we are stuck in and we are addicted to, and that we need to break those thought patterns and those habits in order to truly break free as a species. So with me today, coming back from the Tesla Science Conference and the Energy Independence celebrations, is Frater X. He is still on the line. Frater X, let me ask you another question. What did you think of the phenomenal concert that was put on by Mano Divina and the Divine Hand Ensemble? Why don't you tell people a little bit about that? Because I know you were there at the Ethical Society for that, and many people aren't familiar with the theremin. Why don't you give them your impressions of that instrument and that great orchestral ensemble that you heard?
Yeah, first of all, let me say I was most impressed by that entire piece, the piece that it did, and the performances, the explanation that the leader of the ensemble, what was his name again?
His name is Mano Divina. It's actually Latin for divine hand, so it's kind of a stage name. But he's just a brilliant individual and very eloquent, and he just gave a phenomenal presentation on the theremin instrument.
Yeah, that was very clear that he obviously is a brilliant individual. I mean, he comes across just amazing, and his posture on stage, the performance, it was fascinating. The way I've never seen a live performance of a theremin, and for any of your listeners that aren't familiar with the invention, that was Leon Theremin invented the device.
Yes.
And didn't he say during his talk last night that the principles behind the theremin were originally based on a burglary alarm or anti-burglar device?
Yes, that's
one of the
true.
things he mentioned.
Yeah,
and he talked about how
it's a double antenna system where one acts as a pitch shifter and the other a control function, a volume function. And it's just amazing how it's put together. And it's amazing that it's the only instrument that's played without actually touching the instrument. Your body just simply interferes with the capacitance field that surrounds the instrument. And it's so specific, it's so sensitive that he was telling people there that even his breathing patterns can have effect on the pitch of the instrument. That's how sensitive it is and how difficult it can be to set up and get the tonality just right. So he stands almost completely statue-like still, with statue-like stillness on the stage while he plays, and only moves his hands while he plays. It's truly amazing to see it done, and he's really a virtuoso with this instrument.
Well, that was the impressive part. His posture, his concentration. I mean, you could really see him. His breathing, everything became a part of that performance. I mean, he was so involved in it. And then the finesse and the subtlety and the elegance of his movements, along with the string ensemble behind him, it was so rewarding as an audience participant. It was such, and I know that my wife was so moved by it. Not only the instruments and the sounds, but also the pieces that they chose.
Sure.
Because they were really unique pieces, I think, that really each one of those, each song that they did, I think, conveyed a message. It really brought something to us. And one of the things that I found, and when I'm looking back on the entire experience, I'm sure the average participant in this conference would agree that one of the main unifying themes that you find in this whole entire endeavor involved with Tesla and other inventors like Tesla, theremin, and others, you have the realization that we are surrounded by an energy field that is completely invisible, that we are a part of, that our bodies are a part of, that picks up on every move, every sensory perception that we emit into this field has an effect. And that's an invisible effect imagine if it's that's unqualifiable by standard, five senses perception. But when you hook up, the Carillion camera or any of the other devices that will pick up the changes, you realize we're opening a whole world, a metaphysical reality that proves that there's more to this reality than we are privy to.
And one of the speakers today, Anya Petrovich, which was giving her lecture as I had to leave the conference to come back to my home to do the show here today, was talking about this field that we're constantly interacting with, that we are exchanging information with, that we are sending data to that field that is sending data back to us, and we're constantly moving back and forward between that field. She was talking about this new camera system that they're using for energy healing work, known as the PIP camera, PIP. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but I'm sure people can look it up and check it out. She has a great website called Tesla Metamorphosis, which is about energy healing using Tesla resonant frequencies. And that's really what one of the themes overall was frequency, resonance. This was talked about throughout the conference. This is what Tesla basically worked with. He didn't work with Hertzian waves. He worked with standing waves, or what are generally known as scalar waves or non-Hertzian waves. And this is the distinction between his level of understanding of physics and the physical reality that we live in versus standard physics models that basically don't talk about much these kind of waves. So this was a theme throughout the entire conference. Another great lecture that I heard yesterday was a gentleman by the name of Stoyan. I think his name was Goran. It's a Serbian name. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I'll look it up. But his first name was Stoyan. And he talked.
I got the sheet right here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but his name was Sarge.
Stoyan Sarge.
Yes.
That's it. Okay.
Yes.
He was absolutely phenomenal in talking about a new field propulsion methodology, and this was basically about the cancellation of inertia, and it was a new model, a new unified field model that has been put forward that would unify gravity with the other forces. And basically, this theory was, if applied and understood, would basically make things like actual space travel possible, because it completely nullifies the effects of inertia. So I was looking at that in conjunction with something I'm quite interested in, which is how the gentleman named Edward Leedskalnin built Coral Castle back in the 1920s and 30s. Because that's an enigma that goes back to the ancient world and how the ancient builders built the tremendous achievements that they accomplished in the stone monuments that they built throughout the ancient world. And Leedskalnin basically said he built his Coral Castle with the same principles that they used to build these ancient monuments. So there was so many tie-ins with so many different pieces of technology, and tie-ins with the esoteric world as well, which is where you fit in incredibly well. When you came today, we really got into a discussion about the esoteric traditions, and there are people there who are very receptive to that message as well. There's a blending happening between science and spirituality, and we saw that as another continued theme throughout this conference.
This is the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is What on Earth is Happening, and I'm your host, Mark Passio. Today is July 10th, 2011. We're celebrating Tesla's birthday on the show today. With us today is our special guest from American Freedom Radio and his show, Radio Free Humanity, Frater X. He is heading back from the Tesla Science Conference to his home in Massachusetts. Prater X, I wanted to get your thoughts on what I was talking about before the break, and I apologize for going through the break there, folks. I wasn't watching the clock, and I did not hear the break music start to fade in. So before the break, I was talking about the merger that seems to be happening and coming, rising more and more between this the ideas of science and spirituality and how they seem to be coming together. Can you speak, Frater X, to that dynamic as you perceived it at the Tesla Science Conference?
Absolutely. Mark, I think that it's clear. We know, looking back, that there always has been some sort of correlative factor between science and the esoteric. Depending on the individual scientist or a researcher, innovator, inventor, there's always been a connection there. And then, of course, we suspect and have evidence that there still remains a secret factor to science today that's involved in the esoteric, probably not for any good reasons. But, look at even in the 50s and 60s, I believe, with Jack Parson, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I mean, he was completely involved in the esoteric, but obviously that was in a more negative framework than what we're talking about here. I think that it is very clear in talking about the science of Tesla and others like him that the correlative factors are a multitude. I mean, just the simple fact of the polyphase system that he first imagined and then realized in real material form, if I'm not mistaken, was based on the tandem aperture system of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, and the field that's created there. Now, as we both know, the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun are powerful esoteric symbols. So right there you have a correlative factor. And for the individual who comes into contact with all the teachings and philosophies that are being espoused and surround the scientific, this form of science, you have just endless. I think what really draws people here is that we are outside the box. We are entering a realm that moves away from the known, away from the paradigm that we've been all conditioned to view reality in. And I think that the people who are drawn to this event and are listening now and feel something stirring within them, it's because they know they lack truth. And our world is totally out of joint and off balance because I believe that many people have been fleeced of truth or had the truth removed from their consciousness. And I think that one step towards that for folks who are drawn to this is the realization of the esoteric and the metaphysical reality that surrounds us.
Absolutely. And I think more and more people seem to be receptive of that, even within what could be considered the mainstream scientific community. That's happening in those circles very slowly, but as they say, slowly but surely. So I tend to see that a lot, and very open-minded people in the scientific community coming out to events like this and realizing that there is more to life than meets the eye, and certainly more to the physical. A great quote that was repeated through the weekend was one that Tesla said during his life, that once science stops paying attention to only the physical alone and starts paying attention to the non-physical reality, we're going to make more progress in a decade than we have in the last millennia. And I totally agree with that. We need to pay attention to the basis, the underlying forces that give rise to our physical reality. And as I call it, as I word that on the What on Earth is Happening radio show, the causal factors, the actual wheelwork of nature itself. Instead of paying attention so much to just the physical interactions, we need to pay attention to things that give rise to those physical interactions.
Absolutely, and I'd like to throw in a quote that I heard this weekend, spoken more than once, that's attributed to Tesla, and I may be paraphrasing, but this is how I wrote it down in my notes. He is attributed with these words: "Science is but a perversion of itself unless its ultimate goal is the betterment of humanity."
Yes.
And that intention right there is a paradigm smasher in our modern world, because that's not how science functions in the mainstream. Although they love to say that, Yeah, unfortunately, that's the truth. Although they love to say that their motivation is to, increase our species or, technology and efficiency and, all that. In reality, we know what the motivator is.
Unfortunately, to a large extent, that motivation is control. You could say it's profit, but it's profit toward an end, and that end is control itself. So that's why, again, we need to transition toward not only clean, environmentally clean, but open, free sources of energy that are non-limited, that don't create the dynamic in the consciousness, in the actual psychological makeup of scarcity, because that's what roots us in the base brain consciousness, in the reptile modality of consciousness, and keeps us trapped in material identification rather than allowing us to realize that we are bathing in energy all around us. That is all that is required is to simply understand how to tap into that endless field of energy that is there for us at any given time when we need it. And then that mentality of scarcity and lack will go away, and with it the form of consciousness that goes along with staying in that mindset. That's the key thing. People are starting to realize that energy and the way we produce it and the way we distribute it and the way we use it has everything to do with what the consciousness of the people who are using that said energy paradigm is like. And that is directly related to the quality of the experience that we have in the world that we live in.
Absolutely. And I think that one thing that is become clear to me is the importance of awareness and concentration. Every invention, every innovative idea, every advancement that Tesla and inventors like him made were as a result of their own concentration and realization through awareness of their surrounding, awareness of the elements, awareness of the way that the systems of life function with each other. This is all signposts to me, and I'm sure to others, that we need to cultivate greater awareness, understanding, concentration. These are all things that are anathema in our modern culture. I mean, we're churning out ADD left and right. Why is that happening in America almost exclusively? Because our awareness has been fragmented and refracted into a million points of light, where we cannot stop for a moment and just focus on reality. We're always being coaxed to move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing, and to allow ourselves to be captivated and captured, our awareness captured and diverted down cul-de-sacs of
distraction.
Nonsense.
Yes, distraction.
Yeah, distraction and nonsense.
And this short attention span theater form of consciousness. See, that's the whole thing that Tesla never fell into. He always maintained laser-like focus. He always was able to pull back and see the big picture, but his mind worked with laser-like precision. He exercised the will. He had the imaginative capacity, but he combined that tremendous right brain imaginative capacity in which he could envision inventions in his mind even before he put them together and understand that they would basically work when he did put them together. He combined that with the scientific logical left brain that maintained laser-like focus and willpower and intent. And when he put those together, you see the type of genius that resulted. That's why I say this is the scientist probably who has had the most balanced brain out of any other throughout the course of human history, because that's the dynamic, that balance of the brain hemispheres is what allowed this man to achieve the heights of genius that he did, and to do more for the world as far as invention goes and as far as science goes than perhaps any other inventor or scientist in history.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly the point I was trying to make. And to get back to the esoteric aspect of this, when you ask that question, well, what is at the root of esoteric pursuit, if not the balance between the metaphysical and the physical? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's absolutely right. Because we have to get out of this dualistic mindset of spiritual versus physical. These need to be brought together. They're one and the same. I keep saying this. Okay, there's the intro music for this next break. We'll pick that discussion up on the other side. The idea of the merger between the spiritual and the physical, and how that blends with the idea of the merger between science and spirituality. We'll take a look at that on the other side with our special guest, Frater X from American Freedom Radio, and his great show, Radio Free Humanity, which I highly encourage everyone to check out. Stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to
no longer being tied down.
We're back, folks. This is What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Today we're recapping the Tesla Science Foundation's Nikola Tesla Energy Independence Celebrations 2011 with our special guest, Frater X. We'll be going back to Frater X momentarily. I just want to give the call-in number for the show. So if anyone wants to call in, we will be taking calls in the coming segments. The call-in number for the show today is 866-841-1065. We want to hear from you with your questions. We want to hear anything you have to say on the topic of Nikola Tesla or free energy or the energy paradigm in general that we're stuck in right now, how we might transition away from that and help to break free from that. And if you have any questions for Frater X, feel free to fire them off. It looks like Frater X just dropped off the line. Frater, if you are listening, you can call back in and I'll get you right back on here. I'm not sure what happened. It's possible he's driving through an area where he lost his cell phone reception. Okay, I see he has called back in. Frater X, are you there? You dropped off there for a moment.
Yeah, I'm on the outskirts of New York City now, so I think I'm getting into a little interference. If I get disconnected, I'll just keep calling back in.
That's not a problem at all. I understand that cell phone reception on the road could be a little bit spotty, so no problem. Before the break, we were really hitting on something that is critical, and I want to go back to that, and that is the idea that ultimately, what we need to really understand and what's still keeping science and spirituality separate and not able to really be bridged or merged fully is the fact that people still have this dichotomy, this dualism in mind between the spiritual and the physical. And really, there is no duality there if we truly understand the material reality that we live in as a construct of the spiritual world in general. So can you speak to that and how that's basically just a way of dividing people?
Absolutely. I refer to them as the engineers of our society, and I believe that the ruling paradigm under which we all operate in our modern culture is one which would have us believe that there is a division between the spiritual and the material, and that, I believe, is what keeps or has kept up until this moment science and our species from moving into that realm that Tesla mapped out for us 100 years ago.
If all things are truly one, how could there be any separation between those things?
Absolutely. You just reminded me. The speaker from last night, the psychologist who was born in Serbia, that spoke at the Ethical Society.
Yes,
I can't remember her.
Milena Bajic.
Right. She said at one point that Tesla's realization was, in fact, that we are all one. And when she said that, an idea popped into my head. The meaning of the word individual. Most people, when you say individual, it immediately, the semantic reaction is you're thinking about one little isolated item.
Right.
But the word individual actually means undivided.
Non-divided, non-dual. That's exactly right. Yes.
If you look that up, don't believe me, but that's what it means. So the reality there is, wow, what a powerful meaning to a word that we think of as almost the exact opposite. And there's clear evidence right there of the ruling paradigm under which we all operate when we construct this consensual reality that we move through in everyday life. And that is, in fact, the program, I think, that was put in place a long time ago to disempower us and keep us limited in our scope so that we might be led where they would have us go.
Exactly.
And I say they, the engineers of our society.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly how that dialectic works. You keep people not only divided in their worldview, you keep them not only divided between each other, you keep them divided within themselves, so that they see themselves as separate not only from everything else, but they're divided amongst their own inner self. And that level of inner division gets reflected in the external reality in which they live. And that's why the world is in the state that it is in, ladies and gentlemen, because until we bring ourselves individually together, meaning no longer be divided within, on an individual basis, a one-to-one basis, okay, we're never really going to be able to come together as a whole, as a species, with all of the multitude of individuated consciousnesses that exists in this thing that we call a species, to make forward progress as a collective consciousness. So I absolutely agree with your take on that, and I think that is so important of how people are mind controlled. That is exactly how this dialectic is perpetuated, and it's very critical to make that distinction, particularly when it comes to, again, bridging the worlds between science and spirituality, which has been very slow to happen. But I think there's evidence that it is slowly but surely taking place, and I think this conference here this weekend is proof positive of that.
Yeah, this conference is like a key to unlock that kind of thought control that you mentioned. The self-governance, that's the kind of thought control that no one can compete with. Because if you're being governed by some paradigm that has been transplanted into your very psyche, how can anyone really make any kind of impression on you? You're dealing with an inner dialogue, an inner guidance system, that is, and it's a great way. It's a powerful system of thought control, and as you have already stated, we see the evidence of it all around us. Why would a scientific system, mainstream science in our culture, it's specialized, and it's all about quantifiable and qualifiable results. There's no room for abstract speculation. There's no room for outside-the-box thinking. It's all viewed as somehow less viable, less authentic. And why is that? I mean, obviously, why do we, as a species, or as a culture now, because in the beginning of American society, when the people had to basically take care of themselves, it didn't have a phone book full of specialists to turn to for every one of your needs. Everyone had to know how to do everything. Everyone was a mechanic, a plumber, not an electrician, but a farmer. All the things that you had to know, you couldn't turn to anyone else to help you. And now our society has progressed to a point where we've been completely everyone's specialized. I would call it disempowerment,
right,
because no one needs to know anything.
From a state of independence, being able to do things for yourself on your own, to a state of dependence, and that's what they absolutely want us on.
And this conference this weekend being held at the Independence Visitor Center. I mean, there's so many great little signposts like that all around.
And the Ethical Society of Philadelphia and Liberty Place. I mean,
absolutely.
And things just honestly did work out like that. That was not deliberately planned.
I'm sorry, I'm at the toll booth here, and somebody's ranting and raving. But anyways,
no problem. I understand.
So,
sometimes on the road, crazy things go on like that, so not a problem. We have a caller on the line, Fred Rex. Do you want to go to the phones?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Tim in Virginia, you are live on What on Earth is Happening with our special guest, Frater X. What do you have for us here today?
Hey, Mark and Frater, good to hear from you. I always enjoy your show.
Great.
What about Tunguska? That's what I want to know about. I was always under the assumption that was a Tesla shot. He was trying to hit the North Pole up there. There was an archaeologist or Bird or somebody was headed up on a North Pole expedition.
Yes.
And he overshot the North Pole. No one ever tried anything like this before, of course. Come on, give the guy a break. He's a mastermind. he overshot the North Pole, hit Tunguska, and the government. That's what I was always thinking, that the government was always watching Tesla ever since he began. Westinghouse had him at first, and then Morgan took him over and destroyed everything and just put everything under locks. And the government the whole time had to been watching what was going on, and they watched what went on there. And that's what they've got now. They've got those kind of weapons. But the meteorite thing just doesn't stand with me. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I've researched it a bit. Go ahead, Frederick, you take it. Our special guest, Frater X, and we were talking about the possibility of Tesla's involvement in Tunguska, a good question. So, Tim, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. And I wanted to say, Mark, you're hot, man. You just laid in right there what Tesla is all about, and he tried to give the people of the world a kick forward to understand how all this pyramids and everything was built, and to give us a kick forward, and all we got was a kick in the nuts by the U.S. government, J.P. Morgan, and the powers that shouldn't be.
I couldn't agree more.
You talked earlier about Coral Castle, man. That's I haven't heard that. That's the most mysterious, not mysterious, but that was Tesla technology. But no electrons or anything flying. Tesla was powerful, right. Man. He's my superstar. He was a god practically.
We're going to get to the info on Coral Castle in a little bit. I'm going to tell people a little bit about what that was about, because I had a little bit of a side show going on related with Coral Castle. We did a little brainstorming session. I'll tell people about that in a moment. Let me go back to Frater X and finish getting his take on Tunguska and what may have happened there. Frater X, go right ahead.
Well, actually, for clarity's sake, what I really wanted to address was the part of Tim's question about the government and J.P. Morgan being involved in suppressing Tesla's innovations and technology. And I just wanted to, just for the sake of clarity, and there's a reason that I would bring this up, is that I'm not so sure that the government preceded Morgan or Westinghouse in their suppression of Tesla. I think it was more possible that Morgan, Westinghouse, and other industrialists targeted Tesla and used the government as an arm of that targeting.
Totally.
And the reason why I bring that up, the reason why I make that distinction is I think it's important for us all to be clear on who's pulling the strings and what the motivating factor. A lot of people will speculate about all the possibilities, but if you want to keep it in a purely material sense, I think it's clear the motivating factor of the industrialists in this endeavor. And then, of course, we can move into the esoteric and spiritual aspects
and
of it
talk
as well.
about who was controlling J.P. Morgan and pulling his strings, who were his owners, who were his masters, who was he answering to behind the scenes. And that, I would suggest, goes and connects directly in with the occult world, the dark occult world, for that matter.
Yeah, I've read speculations that Morgan was an agent of the Rothschild concerns, right? The Rothschild, Red Shield. I mean, these guys, they go way back with their esoteric actions,
Yeah,
so let me go back to
the. Got it right.
Let me go back to the Tunguska question. I've talked about this with some researchers and some people even in the Tesla Science Foundation, and there's no consensus. There's no general consensus, although some people do feel that it may have been Tesla's experimentations with scalar wave technologies that may have resulted in the Tunguska phenomenon, disaster, however you want to look at it, or whatever you want to call that. Luckily, that having happened in a fairly sparsely populated region, or it could have been much more disastrous. We'll get right back to that on the other side of this break. For this short segment, that's all we have time for. We'll be right back after these messages on what on earth is happening. Don't go anywhere, folks. Before we get back to Frater X and get his take on some other things that went down during the Tesla Science Conference this year, I want to give the call-in number once again because we are taking calls. And the call-in number is 866-841-1065. Once again, 866-841-1065. Feel free to call in. I want to thank a few people who were very instrumental in the Tesla Science Foundation's Energy Independence celebration this year. Of course, the president of the Tesla Science Foundation, Nikola Lonchar, and his wife, Maureen Lonchar, who helped organize the entire thing. My girlfriend, Barbara Marinelli, for helping in so many ways, and specifically for supporting me throughout the entire event. My good friend Michael Falsetta, who helped transport me around during the Tesla Science Foundation and bought me lunch on many days of the event. Thanks, Michael. Dave and Fred Emmendorfer, who did a great job organizing the outdoor event at the Independence Visitor Center. Dave Rosignoli, who coordinated the Tesla Science Conference and basically brought the speakers to the conference and organized that entire thing. What a massive job that was. So great job, Dave. Dave Soltes, who did the filming in the conference room. Michael Riversong, who acted as the MC in the science conference room. Mano Divina, who just, and the Divine Hand Ensemble. People just have to go and check out this great ensemble's website, divinehand.net, and you'll never hear anything like this in your life. Just phenomenal orchestral music, phenomenal chamber music by the Divine Hand, just an incredible performance that they put together for the event at the Ethical Society on Saturday evening. Melissa Dunphy, who acted as the co-host and introduced the speakers at the Ethical Society. Great job, Melissa. Frank Taney, who generously donated the space for the science conference at the Liberty 2 building. Jerry Hartman, thanks for acting as security. Fernando Salguero, who lent us a generator for the Independence Mall portion of the event, and Drew, who brought a lot of the DJs who played out there at Independence Mall. So I'm sure I'm leaving many other people who were involved in the event out. Don't hold it against me. I just put together a quick list before that segment and just wanted to run down it and thank people who directly worked with me during the conference. But I met so many phenomenal people during the event. And that's what a conference is all about, is bringing people together so that then they can collaborate further in the future and take action to improve this place. So with that having been said and the call-in numbers in hand, let's go back to our special guest, Frater X. Frater, are you up for taking another call?
Sure. I'd like to say, Mark,
Sure.
that I, too, felt that spirit of unity consciousness and the supportive the feeling of support and a warm welcome that everyone gave everyone else. And, I feel like I came away from that with some new friends, and that's a really important part of this whole thing is unity consciousness and us supporting each other because we need support. That's how we move forward, and Tesla's story is a sad example of the other direction of what happens when people aren't supported.
That's exactly right. And I think that's another great point that Dr. Michael Pravicha brought up during the Ethical Society event. He said, if we don't make people make it known to people about who Tesla was and what he did in this generation, when a new Tesla, a new inventor or scientist on the order of a Tesla comes along in the future, we're not going to provide a supportive environment for that type of a being to be able to do as great of things or even greater things than what Tesla did, and an opportunity will have been squandered. And I think that's just a brilliant point that was brought up by him, the keynote speaker at the Ethical Society.
Yeah, imagine the folks out there that don't have the strength of will that Tesla did to manifest what he could in spite of the odds against him. Traveling to a foreign nation, thousands of miles away from home, basically without any real clear, how's this going to all lay out. Nothing was mapped out. He had to just kind of make it up as he went along. Now, his will and his concentration, he was able to make the achievements and strides he could. But imagine those out there that don't have his kind of will, that they need support, but if they got support, where they could take us. Hello?
I'm sorry there. I dropped off for a moment. That's what getting involved is all about in a cause that you truly believe in and back and know why it must be done. The question why has to be answered. What is the motivation? Why are people coming together to attempt to do this endeavor? And you have to ask that question. You have to get the answer to that question honestly, and then decide whether you're going to put your effort behind that and then put it into that effort 100%. And that's what the drive and the will is all about. And that's what combining care with that drive and that will, that's what that's ultimately all about. That's what gets anything done. That's what makes anything change. And if we don't understand that basic generative principle that I always talk about on this show, we're not going to make much forward progress as a species. If we do have that key firmly in hand, we're going to unlock all the locks on all the doors, and we're going to make a whole lot of forward progress in ways that we can scarcely even imagine right now.
Yep, everything we want to do, we have to imagine it first, and we have to hold it in our minds and believe it.
Frater, let's go to a call on the line. Here we go. Caller, you are on What on Earth is Happening with our special guest, Frater X. What do you have for us?
Good day to you, gentlemen. Mark, I just wanted to make a comment to you and to add a piece to the Coral Castle mystery.
Sure.
You took the care enough to do these whole presentations on the 9/11, and I listened to it, and during one part of that, you said that you would spend all these episodes, 40 through 60, just in preparation for that one show. And you asked during the third show, is it worth it? Or you hope that it's worth it. Yes, Mark, it was worth it.
Great.
I've now listened to 85% of the content on your shows there, and it was because of your right action that I'm making right actions now to right myself in the world.
Fantastic.
So
I appreciate the kind words and the encouragement. I appreciate that a lot.
Yes,
That's
I really
awesome
appreciate it.
I was just going to say that's an awesome endorsement. And Mark, I just wanted to add to the caller and say, I too feel the same way about you. I listen to your shows, usually not on Sunday, but I download them and listen to them during the week. And I am constantly learning stuff from you, Mark.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Caller, stay with us on the other side, and you can make a further comment and ask a question for Frater X. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, folks. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. We're back, folks. This is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Taking a break from our regular presentation style environment where I lay out some thoughts and ideas and symbolism, etc. And we were looking at the 9/11 event over the last few weeks, and we're going into the esoteric side of 9/11 last week. We'll be doing that again next week after I've had a little bit of time to recuperate from the whirlwind of events this week and weekend. And I can't tell you, talk about energy flow. Just a whole lot going on in a short amount of time. And I realize, I'm human too, folks. There's only so much that you can do in so much time that you're given. So I really didn't have time to prepare the show that I was planning on. So that's why we're doing an off-the-cuff show today, recapping the Tesla Science Foundation with our great guest, Frater X, who was a guest of mine at the Tesla Science conference today. And yesterday he attended the Ethical Society event and was outside at the on the lawn at Liberty 2 as on Independence Mall as well. So let's go back to the caller that we had on the line previously and see if he has a question for Freighter X, and then I want to talk to Freighter X about that portion outdoors at the Tesla birthday celebration there at midnight, and we were on American Freedom Radio while that was going on live, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So, caller, did you have something specific for Freighter X?
I'm afraid not as specific for Freighter X, but I wanted to bring some information that I'd heard in a conference during one of Michael Tellinger's conferences.
Sure.
Which I might suggest is a great guest that you could have on, Mark. His ideas are well in line with yours.
I am familiar with Michael Tellinger, so I would love to have him on at some future point.
Indeed. Well, I went to his one of his recent talks, and one little small thing about the Coral Castle mystery was unveiled during that talk.
Okay.
As many people know, there was one man who made this massive stone monument, and he did all the work himself, and he never let anybody see him doing the work.
Right.
But he would end up moving massive blocks of stone in a matter of a few moments, and nobody could figure it out. Well, there were some kids in the neighborhood there who observed him while he wasn't sure that they were there, and saw that he was using ice cream cones in his hands to move the blocks of stone, meaning he was using a cone-shaped device or stone to manipulate sound frequency to be able to move these stones using sound technology that we have since forgotten.
Absolutely fascinating, and it's something that we are going to continue to look at. A small, I guess you could say, a subgroup of us at the Tesla Science Foundation and related members and associates of this group who are very interested in the enigma of Coral Castle and really want to crack that code because we feel that it holds the secrets of anti-gravity. And Lead Skalnin was on to something, and his mind worked on the order of someone like a genius like Nikola Tesla. So I want to thank you for bringing that up. And on that note, I'd like to basically tell people about very quickly about a little side presentation that it wasn't a presentation, it was more of a brainstorming session that I put together at the Tesla Science Conference this year. We took some interested people in the Coral Castle phenomenon, and we went into a little side area at the conference on the 32nd floor at Liberty 2, and we sat down and talked about this and really just brainstormed ideas. And we had a whiteboard, we had a projector and a screen, and we just completely it was a think tank on how this may have been done, and so many things were brought up, and so many ideas were sent back and forth, and so many great minds were coming together. We did not come to any specific consensus on this, but there is specific experiments that people want to do. There is future research that is going to be done into this. We may even be planning some sort of a trip down to Coral Castle soon with some of these participants and think tank team members, I guess you could call them. And I'll be giving you some more word on that as it develops. But that's what was one of my functions during the first 2 days, during the Thursday and Friday of the event, of the Tesla event, because I think this is all related with resonant frequencies, and I think that's how Tesla managed to do what he did with an understanding of these frequencies. It's how Ed Lead Skalnin, the builder of Coral Castle, managed to do what he did. It's how someone like Royal Raymond Rife, the great scientist and optics engineer, managed to do what he did with healing diseases through resonant frequency technologies. And I think all of these things are interrelated, and it's all going to break sooner than anybody realizes. People are going to crack all of these enigmas, codes, however you want to look at it. And the powers that shouldn't be are not going to be able to hold that knowledge back for much longer, because too many people are interested and too many people are working on revealing those great secrets of the hidden mysteries of the wheelwork of nature. And we're going to do it, and it's going to happen within the lifetimes of the people listening to this program right now. So, Frater Rex, I want to go back to you and talk a little bit about the great Tesla birthday celebration that happened during midnight last night. On midnight between the 9th and 10th, which is when Tesla was born, at the stroke of midnight in the village of Smiljan, which is now modern-day Croatia. It was the Austro-Hungarian Empire when Tesla was born there. But what did you think about the dynamic outdoors, right in the cradle of liberty, the birthplace of human freedom, which is Independence Mall right here in Philadelphia?
Yeah, that was one of the highlights, I think, of our experience, was being there for that and attending that celebration. There was, probably 100-plus people standing around at midnight, in the center of Philadelphia. There was coils going up. My son was so excited about getting to put the big fluorescent bulb near the coil and watch it light up. And, I mean, it was just fascinating watching. It was like a bunch of kids in a candy store. And there were a bunch of kids there, but there were people of all ages, all walks of life, all coming together. And we broadcast the Radio Free Humanity show live, which was an awesome opportunity. I felt so privileged to be a part of this. And Mark, coming on your show today, it's like I am so jazzed to have myself associated with Tesla. And I know that everyone that I talk to that's involved in all this says the same thing. It's something that the people that are being drawn to this, they realize the importance of all this. And one thing that we went over in the show with my co-host Jack last night was how, the level of satisfaction in the realization that the show we were doing was as a result of Tesla's work. Here I was, wireless transmission from Philadelphia, Jack, wireless transmission from Hilo, Hawaii, all transmitting back to Austin, Texas for AFR. It's just amazing.
All based on Tesla technologies. All based on Tesla's technologies. Would not have been possible without them.
Absolutely. And then, surrounded by his technology all around us, in the center of Philadelphia. And that's part of the reason why I felt like I'm coming away from this entire conference having made new friends, because of the folks that were there at the Independence Visitor Center. Those people were so welcoming.
Give everybody your website and go and check out his archive, folks. Give them your website.
That'd be www.radiofreehumanity.com.
Check out Frater Rex's
on AFR.
Great radio show on American Freedom Radio, folks. And thank you so much for having me on as a special guest caller last night on the show out there right at Independence Visitor Center. I want to thank you for that. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. We are back on What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We are on the line with special guest Frater Rex, radio talk show host on American Freedom Radio. His show, Radio Free Humanity. Let's go back to Frater Rex and let's bring in another caller. Here we go. Caller, you're on What on Earth is Happening. Do you have something for myself or Frater X?
Yes, Mark. Hi, it's Kevin.
Kevin, how are you?
Awesome.
Kevin,
I was totally enjoying yesterday.
I want to tell everyone, Kevin was also one of the great organizers, and he helped bring the DJs in. So, Kevin, I should also give great thanks to you for your help in organizing the event out at Independence Mall yesterday, because without you, we wouldn't have had a lot of the musical aspect to the celebrations out there on the lawn. So thanks so much, Kevin, for your contributions to the event as well.
It was an honor to help out. I it just was so much fun. Like, even my son, like, the best part of it was when I was leaving and taking my son home, and he was saying, I don't want to go. I knew I succeeded at something at that moment, like when my 7-year-old had such a good time, even like getting to play with the Tesla coil as well. Like, it was really a beautiful day, and like everyone that was there really seemed to enjoy. Like, you weren't there, but I was actually handing out a whole bunch of the Tesla pamphlets.
Oh, that's great.
That were there, that were available as well, and I put them into the hand of at least like 60, 70 tourists that were coming through as well.
I'm glad
that letting them know that was what was going on.
I'm glad they were being used in that capacity. That's what we printed them for. And again, I did have to leave early yesterday at the Independence Mall section to go help set up at the Ethical Society. So I want to thank you for taking the reins and doing that kind of outreach there. That's what an event like this is all about.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, do me a favor, check your Facebook. I actually sent you a link to a video that I made for it, which is pretty much like of the day, of the time period that you missed. Okay. And I think you'll really appreciate it. You were in one of the pictures that I took of you before you had left, but like it's a really cute overview of what we got out there, nice. And I hope you enjoy it.
That's awesome. Kevin, do you have anything for Freighter X?
Actually, I don't know if I got a chance to meet you while I was there. I like I said, I left a little earlier, like around 6, 7 o'clock. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you guys for like helping to co-create reality with me. It was like great. It was really beautiful.
Thanks so much for being a part of the event.
I forgot to mention the music. That was an awesome addition to the experience. The DJ tent. That was really cool.
Yo, and another person I should mention thanks to was Panadelphia, who came out with a collaborative artistic. They basically do collaborative art parties where they bring out these huge tarps and let people co-create art all together and in a tapestry, which is a beautiful allegorical symbol of what we really need to be doing collectively as a species. So Paul and Squints of Panadelphia, I want to also send thanks out to them. And I'm sure I'm leaving out a whole bunch of people. And, whenever you make a list, you're inevitably going to leave people off. Thanks to everyone who was involved in making this event happen. You all understand and know who you are and your role in it, and without everybody's involvement it would not have been the success that it was, and I'm sure it'll grow even bigger next year and more people will become involved, and the outreach will be even more intense. So Freighter, well, I think we do have another caller on the line, so let's see what this caller has to say. Here we go. Caller, you're live on What on Earth is Happening with our special guest, Freighter X. What do you have for us?
Thank you, Mark. It's Bob from Cincinnati. Thank you for your work.
How are you?
And I'm fine, Mark, and you deserve all the rest you can get. Thank you to you and your guest, Freighter X, and all the other excellent people who stood in our stead, those who couldn't be there at the Tesla Science Foundation conference out there. Thank you, gentlemen, for keeping Nikola Tesla, the true wizard of science. He took science into the realm of what we would call magic. Therefore, he is a true wizard. And thank you for your voices. We must continue to keep Tesla. Mark, you are one of the most steadfast voices for Nikola Tesla. He is our answer. His work has been suppressed for 70 years. It is now coming to light. He left Croatia, Serbo-Croatia, with the plans for a flying machine that had no wings. If I may, there is a quick article in the New York Herald. I want people to Google Tesla, New Monarch of Machines, New York Herald, 1911, the October 5th edition, his own words, and I quote, "My flying machine will have neither wings nor propellers. You might see it on the ground and you would never guess it was a flying machine, yet it will be able to move at will through the air in any direction with perfect safety, higher speeds than have yet been reached, regardless of weather, and oblivious to holes in the air or downward current. It will ascend in such currents if desired. It can remain absolutely stationary in the air, even in a wind for a great length of time. Its lifting power does not depend on any delicate device as the bird has to employ, but upon positive mechanical action, end quote. Nikola Tesla in 1911 had the plans for the wingless craft that we see in the air today, using mechanism that is not using aerodynamics. He was a master of the ether. Ether physics has been suppressed. I want you to Google ether physics, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the free energy we're desperate for, the free energy that is our birthright. Nikola Tesla is the answer. Thank you for your voices, gentlemen.
Bob, before you go, give people that first search term again so they can check that article out. What was that first search term you wanted them to Google?
Absolutely. Tesla, new monarch, like a monarch sovereign, a king, new monarch of machines. His article in the New York Herald, October 15th, 1911.
Fantastic.
This is a very telling article.
Bob, you always bring phenomenal information to the show, and I thank you for all the information you bring forward when you call in here. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark. Good night.
You got it. You take care. Freighter X, I got to get your comment on that.
Yeah, I just want to say, it is an honor and a privilege to be counted as one keeping the spirit of Tesla alive. I mean, it makes the entire trip worth it to me, just to be a part of this. I'll tell you, this is about Tesla, and it's just it's such an important topic.
Absolutely. So, let's see what we want to do next is in the next segment I'm going to read the unanimous Declaration of Energy Independence, because that was the entire crux of the event, and I read it twice. I read it at the Ethical Society, I read it at Independence Mall, and it's an honor to be able to share that with people there, because that is where the original Declaration of Independence was read, and that's the document that enshrines the principles of natural law, of the foundational basis of natural law into this nation. Sadly, we've fallen very, very far off of that path. We need to get back to it, and we need to get back to it fast. But we at the Tesla Science Foundation enshrine these principles into our own Declaration of Independence, and it's a Declaration of Energy Independence. So before we do that, Freighter X, any other comments or words, any kind of constructive criticism, anything that you want to add, perceptions that you witnessed, that you saw as part of the dynamics of the Tesla Science event, the Tesla Energy Independence event this year in Philadelphia, and maybe tell us what you might like to see in the future as incorporated as part of the event.
Well, first of all, let me say, wow, it must have been such a privilege for you to be able to read that statement in the vicinity of Independence Hall. Knowing what we know about the history there and how important this is, and how it goes hand in hand, I believe, with I believe that this moment right here and now, I predict this moment right here and now will be viewed eventually as a turning point, because these are such important times. And for the future of our country, of our nation, which was begun with that initial statement, a Declaration of Independence, and this is the second one. This is a new one. And this statement that you're going to read in the next segment is one of the most empowering and powerful messages that you, I'm talking about the Tesla Science Foundation as a body, have brought to the people that are there to hear it. And I'm glad to be a part of it, Mark. I can't say anything about constructive criticism, because it was an awesome experience.
Thanks so much, and we'll be right back on the other side of this break. The Declaration of Energy Independence will be read, and we'll get Freighter X's take on that, and we'll wrap things up in the last segment. Don't go anywhere, folks. Stay with us. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening.
Hey, this is Jack Blood, host of Deadline Live.
Welcome back, folks. This is the final segment for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website is whatonearthishappening.com. We are recapping the Tesla Science Foundation's third annual Nikola Tesla Energy Independence celebrations here today on the show. My special guest with us, who came out to Philadelphia for the Energy Independence celebrations, is Frater X. He is on his way back to Massachusetts after the conference. We'll be getting back to Frater X in a moment, but as promised in the last segment here, I'm going to read the unanimous Declaration of Energy Independence as drafted by the Tesla Science Foundation. In conscience, July 10th, 2009. The unanimous Declaration of Energy Independence. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for the people of Earth to dissolve the relationships, habits, and thought patterns that have bound us to an unsustainable energy paradigm, our conscience compels us to state our grievances with these outmoded systems and to unanimously declare our intentions for the future of free energy. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that in our modern age, all means of energy production are not equal, some being polluting, limited, non-renewable, and controlled by corporate-driven profit motives, while others are clean, abundant, sustainable, and able to be made freely available for the betterment of all people. That human innovation and creativity has excelled beyond our current methodologies of energy production, and that the current energy paradigm is ecologically unsound, economically unfeasible, socially divisive, and morally bankrupt. That dependency on our current energy production methods has led to the increasing environmental degradation of our living planet and to a growing systemic mentality of scarcity, lack, fear, aggression, and imperialism. That free energy technology has been developed and suppressed for over a century, and we need not be dependent on non-renewable energy for a moment longer. That the time is now for us to develop a means of energy production and distribution that utilizes the inherent abundance of nature itself. That, as stated by the great scientist and inventor Nikola Tesla, science is but a perversion of itself, unless it has as its ultimate goal the betterment of humanity. That whenever any energy model has been perpetuated toward a system of control, limitation, and the stagnation of humanity's collective evolutionary progress, it is the right and duty of the peoples of all nations to abandon the outmoded technologies upon which such systems are built and transition toward those which are clean, renewable, sustainable, and free. We, therefore, the free people of Earth, in good conscience, assembled, appealing to the supreme order of nature for the manifestation of our intentions, do solemnly declare that in our lifetimes, through our continued dedication, ingenuity, and inspiration, we will bring to fruition a new and free energy paradigm, one in which empowering advancements in technologies are made widely and freely available to all peoples in the service of human potential. And for the support of this Declaration of Energy Independence, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Words inspired by the original Declaration of Independence, drafted and signed right here in Philadelphia. So, Frater X, your take on the unanimous Declaration of Energy Independence as drafted by the Tesla Science Foundation.
I'll tell you, Mark, this statement here, I rank this high among the statements that humanity has made generally to itself. I mean, this is such a powerful statement. It is an honor and a privilege to be associated with you folks who have come up with this, because I actually rate this association highest among mine at present. This is so important. I cannot stress it, and I hope that your listeners and those who might hear this show later in the archives could really receive this, because this is so important. People need to go to your website, or the website that your organization has. I know it's not your organization,
Sure.
but you're a part of it, but the TeslaScienceFoundation.org, I mean, it's got everything there, and then, you know, I went to the website before I came out here, and it was such a satisfying experience to come and meet the folks that are involved, because it takes it to the next level. Like you said, the opportunity, looking forward to coming face to face with other people who share your convictions, who share your passion, who share your desire to move forward as a species. And it's the most fulfilling experience there can be. And I think it's such a clever way for you to impress upon folks with this statement, because it is so powerful. It's so empowering.
And this conference is not an end. It's a beginning. This is just the beginning of relationships. New relationships between people are being forged as a result of this conference, and we will work together and collaborate during the course of the coming year on projects. And that's how these conferences work. That's what a conference means. The word conference comes from the two Latin words, con meaning together and ferre meaning to bring. That's what the essence of a conference is all about, bringing people together for a common focus, a common goal. And that's what why getting involved and getting out there, putting yourself out there, and joining up with others. It is all about the individual and being non-divided, non-dual, that individual, indivisive, okay? But there is power in numbers as well. When all of those individuated units come together, they form a strength that is impossible. Those bonds are impossible to break when they come together over something that is truly just and moral, and they know the reasons that they're doing it. They know the why behind the effort. That's something that a lot of the members of the Tesla Science Foundation share. They have a very clear idea. Their eye is on the prize. They know why they need to be involved in this organization. And we need more help. You know, there is still work that needs to be done. There's still many more roles that people can step in and fill in this great organization. So don't think that everybody else has it in hand and there's somebody out there that's got the job done. Get involved. Get involved. I can't stress that enough. So thanks for making that point. We do have one more caller on the line. Let's see what they have. Here we go. Caller, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. What do you have for us?
Oh, yeah. I just wondered if you think that Dr. Phil's right on any of the things, any of the points on his show that he makes.
I have not actually really looked into him that much. I've maybe caught the show a couple of times when I'm in people's houses that have and watch television. I would have to actually, you know, it's not really related to the topic we're talking about today, but I can't speak to it as such. He seems to be, you know, accurate on some of the things that he talks about as related to human motivations, but I don't want to say any more than that because I don't really know about his work that much and haven't followed it, mainly because I don't really watch television. So I want to thank you for that, but I can't really speak to that topic in general, so sorry. Frater X, it looks like you dropped off there for a moment. Are you back with us?
Yeah, we went under the overpass in the city and got lost there.
No problem. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a minute and a half left in the show. You take us out, and whatever you have to say, the floor is yours, and don't forget to give your website at the end so people can check you out on your show on American Freedom Radio.
Okay, Mark, well, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to come on your show, and I'd like to, you know, repay you the favor by having you come on in August, when we're going to start talking about the protocols of the wise men of Zion. We're going to look at that work, and we're going to break it down with my experiences involved in the fraternal orders, and then the speculations of those that are outside the orders like yourself, my co-host Jack, and I would love to have you come on and help us to break that down.
Absolutely, I'm there.
Okay, great. And once again, Mark, I want to thank you so much. All your listeners out there, you have an awesome audience that calls in with great questions. If they want to check out my show on American Freedom Radio, it's the website is www.radiofreehumanity.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, our special
And have
guest
a great evening.
for this evening, Frater X. Frater, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great evening. Thanks again for everything.
You too. Take care and be safe driving back. That's all we have time for tonight, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Up next is Michael Vale. Stick around.
We all